try. Okay, is there a bullet point there that you'd like to start discussion on? Or do you want me to just go down the list?
Say that again.
Is there a bullet point there that you want to make a motion on, or do you want to start a discussion on? I can take.
I think we just need to have a discussion period and then we'll hard with that.
Okay. You know, I like to use this word fair and equitable. I'd like to treat everybody the same. It's, when Cambridge built, they came to us and they asked us for tax abatement. We gave them 1 year. The first year's assessed valuation. Correct me, Sherry, if I'm not correct. But they weren't even completed in construction on that first year of assessed valuation. And I think it was around $29,000, maybe $29,600 or something like that. So if you try to be fair and equitable, and you take all emotions aside, you try to treat people the same. So how can I treat Hartman different than I treated Cambridge if I take all the emotions away? With that said, ever since the bypass has been around Fairfield, like I said, we had the county engineer to do a study of our hard surface roads and what would it take to bring all the hard surface roads up to what I call a plus, A+, really high quality. When he did that study, we added in Osage. We did not add in nutmeg because we didn't see a reason for nutmeg to be paved at that time. But we did see a reason for Osage. When the bypass went around, it created a lot of extra traffic on Osage from the Glasgow Road to the bypass. I'd like to see it paved. You know, I've talked about doing a debt levy. Nothing but your tax dollars. A debt levy, everybody pays on the debt levy. All 16,000 people in the county pay on it. But everybody gets to use it too. So I'd love to see that paved. And if I was going to pave that, honestly, I don't know if Hartman's coming or not. But if they did come, that would be a mess. From the bypass to their entrance is pretty good, the way they have it laid out, but the exit would be terrible. So that portion there, and I call it extra ladies. And by the way, ladies, I am very compassionate about your issue. If it was in my backyard, I'd be sitting in the same seat you. But as a representative of 16,000 people, unfortunately, I got to take the emotions out of it, and I don't know there will always be somebody else's backyard. I don't have any control over it because we don't have a rule saying that they cannot do it. So I would not use any of Hartman's money, but I would do what I call a debt levy to pay that portion of nutmeg from the bypass down to Clayton's house that they sold. And I think that's right past, there's a lane that goes into your property right there. And so you would get used to that lane also. That's about $270,000, that portion is what that is. I would use a debt levy for that, and I am not, at this point, until we get done with discussion, I don't know if I want to use, see, that would lower the TIF. If we did a TIF on Osage, that would lower it down to probably about 2.2, 2.5 or something like that, I'm thinking.
And not the loss. Where's that one?
I'm over here now.
Right. Well, we got it right down here, 2.5, 2.2 right here.
But
Okay.
then you add in the,
I
272,000.
wasn't gonna add that in.
You just keep it separate.
Right, I can keep that 100% separate. Because that way he can go ahead and get paid there. And if Hardin didn't show up, it was paid. Ladies could use it. It wouldn't be a waste. I am a visual person. I go out and sit and watch traffic. Sitting out there the other day, not May, there's quite a bit of traffic coming up. School bus comes up, stops, there's another semi come, there was about 4 cars going the other direction. But the reason I don't want to do nutmeg is one, because of the underpass. It's a narrow underpass. If you pull and stop underneath that underpass and look up, you say, what the heck am I doing here? In the wintertime, it's got icicles hanging down from it. It's got some concrete that's effacing on it. The railroad says it's a good bridge. I talked.
For the record, he was looking at Scott.
Yeah, I looked at Scott. Scott and I both talked to the railroad. The railroad did not say, Dick, we will never widen it. But they did say, Dick, it's going to take a while. So why would I want to take and put a hard surface road to something that I know that I'm going to have to tear up to do right after they widen the bridge? Probably be, I don't know, several $100,000 to tear up good road and to widen it, I would think, because you know how rules and regulations are, Scott. When they take and say, okay, we're going to put a new underpass underneath there. Now you're going to have to drop your road a foot because we're saying we want more. We put a new underpass, but now we want more headroom. And those things you can't figure out in advance. You can't. You can do every study in the world, but nobody has the crystal ball on what's going to happen. And so you just try to use some common sense on those things. So I can't see nutmeg except right there in front of those little ladies. But I can see paving Osage. It'd either be a debt levy. The thing about a TIF, if you do a TIF on it, the TIF's going to pay for it. And so let's say the TIF went belly up. I want to pave it anyway. So the taxpayers, if I didn't choose the TIF, I use a debt levy and the taxpayers paying for it. So why would I not do the TIF? So just Heartland has to pay for it. I'm not giving that, I'm not calling that a benefit to Heartland. I'm calling that a benefit to the taxpayers so they don't have to take it out of their back pocket, is the way I'm seeing it. We can definitely do a debt levy. So it's kind of a double-edged sword there, is what I'm seeing. Now, I think I pretty well, that's pretty much what's in my mind. Okay? So I'd like to hear from the other two supervisors.
So my mind's thinking along a similar direction. I know that Osage is a pretty heavily traveled road. You have the southeast part of the county that uses it coming in. You also have a lot of traffic from Van Buren County. You have people that are either coming here to work or coming to Fairfield area to do business, which, as you said, has been used a lot more since the 4-lane because it's a quick cut through, and it also is a pretty good road to be able to do because it's already pretty wide. So that makes, I agree, it makes a lot more sense. The other point I wanted to make about the road in front of Leahy's, it would also be in front of the entrance and the exit. People have been concerned about, a lot of discussion today about dust, and our phones would be ringing off the hook if we didn't do something to that road and pave it because of the problems of the dust. So I think regardless, we have to take a look at that and do what we need to do to pave that section of Nutmeg. The other, in some discussions I've had with farmers around here, they aren't sure that nutmeg is that much of a priority because a lot of the semis avoid all the turns that they have to take. They're much more likely to want the straight roads as if possible, the 4-lane roads. So I'm not sure it's that critical to the truck traffic, except for the local farmers that are using it now, just because it's quicker to get there. So I tend to be a pretty pragmatic person, and looking at the money situation, it really, I think that we really need to consider the TIF for the very reasons that collecting that tax money, as Dick said, isn't much of a benefit to Heartland. It's much more a benefit to the members of the citizens of the county, because we can use that money and use a higher percentage of it to help pay for the roads. And also, like Dick, I did some checking around on what precedent is in the county, and the one-year abatement has been more of a precedent with businesses that have come in. So I've similar views, I guess, to that for varying reasons.
I want to start by asking either Adam or Melanie a question that neither one of you may be able to answer, but that's what I'm going to ask anyway.
You're welcome to come up here.
No, we're okay back here.
Had discussions about over the last 4 months about TIF and urban renewal and so on and so forth. And the question I have is, I realize that there is a time frame involved in creating the TIF or / urban renewal so that we can take advantage of that process. Can we, for lack of a better term, escrow those dollars and give ourselves an opportunity to look at what is available to us as far as other funding to be able, say, for example, to do Osage. I tend to believe that 20 years is an extraordinary length of time that I really particularly don't want to deal with. What I mean by that is I don't want to go out that far, and I don't think it's necessary to go out that far. My question is whether or not we have to proceed once we do a TIF by moving forward and saying, okay, X, Y, and Z by a certain period of time. Do we have an answer to that question?
My understanding is you can create the urban renewal district, set up the TIF mechanism to collect those funds for any increment that Heartland or any other business would put in there. That money is going to go into a specific pot that needs to be spent on projects within that urban renewal zone. There's no requirements to begin that project at any point in time. So yes, to answer your question, my understanding, although you want to probably run this through Mark for it, you can create this area, do nothing for the time being, and then 2 years down the road decide that you want to pay nutmeg or Osage.
The reason I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, finish your thought.
The reason I asked that question is because one of the things that I would like to see the county avoid is capitalizing interest. And I would like to see construction in full bloom before we move forward so that we're collecting 100% of actual revenue, rather than moving forward at a time where I'm not saying that they won't construct. What I'm simply saying is that so that we're at a point in time where it's given us an opportunity to bank some money and look at what else may be available. Obviously, this construction is going to take, if it takes place, it's going to take a year to completion. I mean, their timeline is fall of 2015. So I don't think we're in a rush, in particular if we do Osage, I don't think we're in a rush to just run out and, okay, slap down a layer of concrete so that we meet some arbitrary date. So that's why I was asking that question. So in regards to that, or under that scenario, did you want to say something?
Yeah, along with these TIFs, throughout the bureaucracy, there's a cost to the TIF. In other words, Allers has a pretty good sized fee for doing the legal paperwork on it. Is is that a percentage fee, or is it a flat fee? I think you told me before about how much?
Marshall Quarry has currently spent about $1,800 worth of money on creating their renewal district. I believe all their quote was in the $6,500 range for writing up the TIF arrangement itself. The rest of it are bonding costs. Those are bonds that you would, those are costs that you would experience whether it's a general obligation bond or a TIF bond, regardless.
Okay, so it's not quite as much as I thought. I was thinking about, okay, if you don't do a TIF and you do a debt levy, I realize you're only using 40% of Heartland's money that way, or the county's going to get 40% of that. So it really looks to me like dollars and cents wise that the TIF is probably the best way to go. I'm a Viewlee, you know, you've heard me from day one. I didn't want anything more than 10 years. And by us doing that paving there on Nutmeg and only tiffing Osage, it's going to get us down to, I'm not sure how many years to figure out. But either way, if we do a debt levy, the debt levy is going to drag out that long, and that's, when you take a look at your property tax receipts, a debt levy is the last line on it. And it tells you, we've been doing a debt levy here in the county for a long time. And that's how we pay for that ceiling thing up there. Not necessarily, but that's how we do a lot of capital improvements. And we try to take and keep it very comfortable for you. In other words, we try to get the right amount of money we need to take care of county business, but not make it feel like you've got a big tax increase there. We work really hard at that because we're all taxpayers ourselves and we don't like seeing our taxes go up. That's only one reason. As long as we're talking here, I want to talk a little bit about roads too. Like I said, we had Scott do a study on hard surface roads. There really won't be that much more semi-traffic because it's all going that way or that way or that way or that way anyway. So it's an overstatement when you start saying your county roads are all going to fall apart. Yes, we've got some roads we need to work on. The Packwood Road, I can see more traffic on it, but we got a half a mile there we're going to have to replace anyway. It was designed for trucks, but I don't know who said roads last forever. Jack did.
To a point, yeah.
To a point. Well, I'm getting the age they probably will last forever.
Yeah, for us, yeah.
But anyway, I don't see that the truck traffic is going to be that much more. All I see is the truck traffic won't be going 100 miles. It's going to be going a few miles before it shuts the motor off. I think that's somewhat of an environmental plus. Okay, so that's it.
A comment about your questioning about setting this out in the future. You can do, if you capture the improvements, as long as they're in the TIF, you can expand your TIF down in the future. So right now, capture the Heartland acres, and you're capturing that TIF. We've written the district to include both Nutmeg and Osage. But say you wait a couple of years and you decide that the intersection at Salina and Nutmeg is top priority. There's, safety is somewhere down the road, you decide that that's a higher priority. We can amend that district to include where you need that money to go. It's the same thing we talked early on. The district that we've created at this point doesn't include any additional right-of-way needs. Once design is done and there's additional right-of-way needed, for example, to straighten out an intersection, we'll do that by an amendment. So as long as as long as Heartland is included in that TIF, you can continue to add and still use that money.
Question. If there's a truck stop come in,
Uh-huh.
off of Osage,
Mhm.
and that's added to the TIF, can that be used to pay the TIF off early?
Yes.
We would have to add that area, we'd have to amend the tip to include the area of that truck stop.
So, to follow up then, if we were to do the portion of nutmeg that Dick is talking about, we could do that outside of TIF revenue if we chose to do so. And then, as I take it a step further, at any point that other funds became available that would allow us to move forward without, I mean, we can set the TIF up, say, for 10 years, but do we actually have to have a plan in place to do a specific road, or can we, at the end of a period of time, that we decide that, well, we've gone a different direction, then we rebate the dollars back to the taxing districts? Or do we actually have to spend that money that we've escrowed?
My understanding is that you can choose to rebate any unused funds back to the taxing authorities if you do not use them at the expiration of the TIF.
Okay.
But again,
From the heart.
like
In
you
other
said,
words,
it'd be a
it-
10-year TIF, and
Right.
if a truck stop is built 3 years down the road, you've got the 3-year lag between the assessment, so you're really only looking at capturing a couple of years of TIF for any additional projects beyond Heartland, if you do a 10-year TIF. But you do not need the school authority or any other taxing authorities to do that.
The reason I'm asking the question, Dick, was because if we escrow the money and are able to put money with it, one of the things that, well, like I said earlier, I want to escape, if we can, the need to capitalize any interest by borrowing right away. And then secondly, it gives us an opportunity, maybe slim and none, to capture some safety dollars or whatever from the state to put that. So we may not need to do as much as all I'm saying. As far as, and then of course the resistance to going out 20 years. So but I do think that it makes economic sense to capture Heartland's property tax. However, I want to clarify something just for informational purposes, and if I'm not correct on this, Melanie or Adam, please say so. We have two methods of bonding that we can use, a TIF revenue bond or a general obligation bond. The general obligation bond, for all intents and purposes, is the same thing as a debt levy. We would put in place the full faith, a general obligation bond would put in place the full faith and credit of the county. It would be significantly less cost to the county taxpayers from an interest perspective, okay, than a TIF revenue bond. And I'll be honest with you, I'm not all that well versed on, or all that well versed on TIF revenue bonds, but I do know, in talking to Jeff Heil, that if we were to do nutmeg at 100% as a hypothetical, the additional cost to the county through TIF revenue bond would be about $650,000 because of capitalized interest and other things. So if we can avoid that, whether it's Osage, whether it's nutmeg, whether it's somewhere else, anytime you can avoid accumulating or requiring that much interest debt and then paying interest on the interest, it makes sense to do so. So from that perspective, that was one of the reasons that I asked the question. I do believe we have a safety issue on Osage, and I do believe that it is heavily traveled. So, from that perspective, I think Dick's made a valid argument for his concerns on nutmeg. But I do think that Ed Malloy, Mayor Malloy, also makes a valid point, just for the record. And Becky makes a valid point too. In fact, I think Paul's left. When I talked to Paul on Wednesday, we had this very discussion. I think it's reasonable to assume, first off, we already have a fairly significant amount of truck traffic. I think that Dick's right. I think it will stop rather than going on, but I don't think we notice it quite so much as we will under the circumstances. If I'm a truck driver, and I'm not, okay, I've never driven a semi, driven 24-ton in-dumps and LP trucks and stuff, but I've never driven a semi. reminded of a song that came out years and years ago called "I Need 4 Years to Turn This Rig Around." And I think that most truck drivers would prefer the least amount of turns possible. So I think it's also reasonable to assume that we will see some continued use of coming down Highway 1 and across 34 as opposed to coming down Nutmeg. I still think that our farmers that use Nutmeg will continue to use Nutmeg. I don't see any reason why that would change. I think the Germanville Road will be used as well. The improvements on 185th are not part of this TIP program, but that's already been in the plan and has been for a number of years and will proceed this year irrespective of whether Heartland was to come or not. And it will be a significant upgrade to that road, significant. So I think the question in front of the board is,
Well, the question is, consider economic incentive options for a co-op project. And so, to me, the only incentive part is that 1 year tax abatement is the only incentive. The rest is taking care of county roads, but that's, everybody can see it different in their own eyes. There was something, there's a process with all this, and there is, once we make a decision of what direction we're going to head, then there will be public hearings. Allard's from Des Moines writes the menu, I'm going to call it the menu on what we follow. And so there will be some more public hearings on this that people have. And at public hearings, the first thing is you open up the public hearing, that's for the public to make comments, is what it is. And yes, Marcia, you'll get a chance to speak again. She's giving me the eye. Okay, I started the dialogue, I should have done that.
she just likes your shirt.
Well, yeah. I'll have you know, last evening I was on the ironing board. That's a lie, it's permagrass. Okay. Any other discussion? Yes.
In your.
This is a paid council. Melanie Carlson, she's a shining engineer out of French Reniker, does a good job for us, and we respect her advice.
In the discussion that I haven't heard you bring up today is still the safety issue related to the underpass as well as some of the crossroads on Nutmeg, as far as adding stop signs, switching which way is the traffic, still putting the stoplights. And so I hadn't heard you bring it up today. I wanted to make sure in your decisions you were still considering at least doing that, whether you don't pave it or not.
It's my position that I've discussed with our engineer that I would like to see the stop signs placed on 200th east and west and the stop signs on Nutmeg continue to remain in place. Part of the reason for that is that I believe it's going to take a while for the folks to get used to stopping on 200 because they never had to before. And maybe that will remain a four-way stop. As far as the part goes, I don't know if we've gone that far down the road yet. But I do honestly believe that we do need to put stop signs on 200th Street. In the proposals that we talked about, obviously, that we came up with for Nutmeg was the issue of stoplights, some type of traffic regulator, traffic signal regulation. I don't know if that's necessarily gone away. I understand where Dick is coming from, but I do think that if, certainly in the future, if we see an increased traffic load there, that we can use TIP dollars to go ahead and put in something there to regulate traffic. And I think Becky made an excellent point too, and on behalf of ladies, which is not necessarily something that they want to hear, but I do believe that paving that southernmost section there would be not the end result that they would like to see, but certainly would be better than nothing on that intersection as far as the road goes. So that's my decision.
Yeah, you know, we did, flashing lights out there at Cambridge. Did, Cambridge end up paying for that, you know?
We split it with.
We split it with, yeah. But, yeah, that's definitely something we have to consider. Now, I'm thinking, I don't know the price. Maybe you've got the price in the pocket there.
Traffic signals at the railroad underpass, 50,000.
And see, and I know Scott, the engineer, doesn't like when we start picking his budget apart, but, I don't want to really add that on to the TIF. I'd rather do that with just our county dollars. It needs to be done anyway. Like I said, when you see school buses loaded with kids going on a situation like that, I'd like them to take a different route, to tell you the truth. And I don't know, I'll probably talk to Fred and Galloway about that, but,
Melanie, can I ask you just a quick question? On the opinion of probable cost for Nutmeg Avenue, from the end of pavement of Old 34 to the north 1,000 feet. I don't know why because that's what they talk about, is 1,000 feet. It was 272,000, and in that they have traffic control of 6,000. Can you reference for me what that is? Is that the signals?
That wouldn't, you said for 6,000? No, that would just be, you said it was traffic control, I don't have that one in front of me.
Yeah.
That is more, traffic control during construction.
Okay. Okay, gotcha. Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
traffic control during construction. Is that standard for a county to be responsible for that?
No, it's part of the contractors, that would be a bid item, such as the pavement or
Oh.
the drainage.
Okay.
It's standard for the contractor to be
Okay.
responsible.
All right, got it. Okay, do I hear, any other discussion with the board?
Unless
If not, I'd like,
the question.
the others.
Well, I guess what I need to know is, we have on there debt levy, not make partial and Osage.
We're gonna rewrite it. We're gonna write it, well, if somebody makes a motion, I guess I'll make the motion, okay? So we're using a debt levy of like 272,000 to pay a portion of that, not pay. We will do a TIF on Osage. And oh, and a 1-year tax abatement.
So you're looking at number 3.
I'm just mulling them together.
Okay.
Yeah. In other words, this one hasn't been invented yet.
Oh, okay.
Okay. I'll start over from the county auditors for you. So Scott? And I've already told you why I thought the 1-year tax abatement was important, because we did it at Cambridge. 1-year tax abatement on first year's assessed evaluation. Now, if they don't get started until September, if they don't have hardly anything done come January 1st, that's the way it is.
Is that what the census January?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Right. And it'll only be a partial assessment.
That's correct.
So the dollars may be fairly small. So 1-year tax abatement, first year assessed evaluation, pay a portion of Nutmeg, and the estimated cost $272,000.
That's what that levy.
And that's what that's. And then pay Osage, with a TIF. because we want to pave Osage anyway. We were getting ready to talk about doing it with a debt levy, but instead of having all the taxpayers pay for it, we'll just have property pay for it.
We can do that either way, as far as, I just want to make sure it's clear in my mind that you're, or do we have the option, do we have to decide now, or do we have the option of determining what bond method we want to use if we move forward at a later date? In other words, when we say, okay, we're going to TIF Ringling Brothers Barn and Bailey Circus, do we have to at that point say, and when we do that, it's going to be a GO bond or a TIF revenue bond?
I don't believe you have to make that determination today.
I raised this question.
Well, and why don't I put it subject to review with Jeff Heil, our financial advisor. Okay, and that really opens it up, so when we sit here at Jeff and he tells us the X, Y's, and Z's on it, that we can do it one way or the other. Did you catch that, or did that work for you?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I appreciate that, because I didn't realize we didn't have to decide that at the beginning of it.
Well, there's a lot to it.
Yeah.
Okay,
So, you want to try to read that back?
Well, it's a kind of three-part motion.
Yes.
1 year tax abatement on the first year assessed valuation for the apartment co-op. A debt levy of $272,000 will be used to pay a portion of Nutmeg Avenue.
Right.
And TIF for Osage Avenue,
Right.
subject to the review of Jeff Heil.
Got it. Got it, very good.
I just wondered if we could be that specific dollar-wise on the margin.
Approximate. It's an approximate construction cost. Todd, you got, put some input? No? Are you?
Something different than mailer and
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, it could be more, it could be less. I mean, but how do you get anywhere unless you get started? I mean, I'm just putting this thing in low gear and not in the clutch out. Okay. Adam, I'm sorry. Adam,
Point of clarification, so if you're using the TIF to pave the entire stretch of Osage, is that correct?
yes.
Okay, how long of a TIF are you looking at then?
The least amount of time that we think Heartland will pay off in. In other words, you know what I'm saying? If you're gonna look at that,
The estimate's 2.5 million. You're looking at probably 18 years.
2.2,
Probably about 15-year TIF, that's what you'd be looking at, estimate, give or take a couple years.
Okay.
So you would need approval of the other taxing bodies on that.
Yes.
But if we,
And that's what we're gonna talk to Jeff about. I mean, you also, but we're gonna need to see those numbers to see if there's a better option. How could we look at all those numbers before? That was the difficult thing, trying to figure out, look at all the different realms and numbers without having it isolated down to something where you could really wrap your hands around. That's been the tough thing for the board. And so we're in our fourth public meeting and we're getting there. Is everybody going to be in agreement? No. We got to be, go ahead. Okay, I'm going to call for a vote here. Discussion. Now, when I say discussion, that's between the board. We do that in order so we can have a vote.
so, Alan, I'm going to come back to you again real quick. If I'm doing the math in my
my head at 2.2 million. If we don't bond until after construction is completed at the very least, and maybe 2 years out, to give us a chance to start capturing revenue, say 2017, okay? Then, of course, I realize TIP is counting, so now we're 7 years into that, or I'm sorry, we've got 7 years left with whatever revenue that we've added up to that point. If we do a general obligation, if we do a GO bond rather than a TIP revenue bond, capturing that money,
By waiting 2 years, you'd be saving approximately $140,000. I think the capitalized interest for each year out of the 2.8 million bond was about $80,000, so give or take.
but our interest rate would be significantly less at 10 than it would be going out 15. And the question I guess I'm looking at is that if we at just round figures estimate $300,000 a year in property tax revenue, obviously the interest not included in that, you're looking at 2.1 billion. Now, we can supplement that besides, and there may be other development that occurs within that. So all I'm saying to the board is, I don't think we need to necessarily, I'm not sure we need to go out 15 years. I think we just look at what we can accomplish in 10 years and how we put that together.
Yeah, and I think we'll have a better handle on that.
When we get the figures.
When we get the figures.
But do we not have to tell somebody, or we can decide the length of time at a later point? In other words, another discussion with Jeff Pyle?
Marcia Corey will need to establish the urban renewal area in short order here within the next couple of weeks. She's got the first draft prepared. I've had her hold off on moving forward with it because this discussion needed to happen. But that will need to establish the timelines of the TIF. So you'll need to go out and get approval through everybody else. So yeah, if you do it only 10 years, you can potentially supplement any of those costs through the rest of the property taxpayers' dollars. But you would not be able to do a TIF revenue bond at that point because there would not be sufficient money to pay for Osage.
What I see is pick up the phone, call Jeff Pyle, tell him, okay, here's what we'd like to do. We'll see at next Monday's meeting if that's possible, and he lays it out for us at a public meeting. And then, then we'll know. And then you can tell Marcia Corey how long it's gonna be. I mean, we can't tell them how long it's gonna be if we don't know yet the numbers we guess. We can say we don't want to go any longer to something, but if you say you don't want to go any longer to something, you better have some money tucked away someplace in order that they can pay the bill. And I don't know where we have that money tucked away. Right, that's where it's at, but that's one-time stuff. Well, agreed, yeah, this would be too. Right, it would be, yeah. Understand. Anything else? I'm gonna call for a vote. This seems like an important thing. Roll call vote. I'm gonna start. Yes? Lee?
Yes.
Becky?
Yes.
Okay. Passed. So let's go to work on that. I'll call Jeff as quick as I can in a second. Okay? Okay, next on the agenda is, so that completes the Heartland portion of this agenda. So next we're going to take and down here acknowledgement of April 7th and 14th minutes. So have a motion on the floor, discussion. Everybody fair to say aye? Aye. Pass, thank you. Okay, we'll go into it right now.
Where do I turn? I can just over here.
Okay. Okay, next thing I'm going to go into.
Sorry. Sorry.
Thank you folks for your patience, appreciate it.
I'm trying to.
Okay, next we're going to go into